She walked into the bank she built from the ground up, confident, respected, and in charge. But within minutes, her own employees looked at her like she didn't belong. Security was called. Whispers spread. Papers dropped. All because of the color of her skin. What happened next would shake the very foundation of that institution and remind everyone that power has no color. This isn't just about a woman in a bank. It's about dignity, justice, and what happens when silence finally breaks. Yet, beneath the polished glass walls and friendly greetings, Alicia had noticed something change. Subtle things. Averted eyes in the hallway. Faint smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Rumors she couldn't quite trace. She brushed them off, because that's what strength demanded. For years, Alicia Monroe had been the face of success. From a small-town girl with big dreams to the youngest black woman to ever lead a major financial institution, she had built her career on grit, vision, and an unshakable belief in fairness. Her mornings were a rhythm of precision, coffee at 6, board meetings by 9, and a sense of pride in every decision she made. The bank wasn't just her workplace, it was her legacy. That morning felt no different. She walked through the marble lobby, heels echoing with confidence, unaware that within minutes, everything she had built would be tested. A simple misunderstanding, or maybe something far darker, was about to reveal what kind of power truly mattered. Alicia stepped through the revolving doors of her own bank, every inch of the lobby reflecting the legacy she'd built. Polished marble floors, a custom glass chandelier, and the golden logo she'd personally approved years ago. The morning air was filled with quiet conversations and the faint hum of computers booting up. She smiled, nodding to the receptionist, but something was off. The young woman at the desk didn't greet her back. Instead, her eyes flickered with hesitation. Her smile faltered. Alicia brushed it off and kept walking, her heels tapping sharply against the floor. Then came the first whisper. Who let her in? She stopped. A group of new employees at the teller line were watching her closely, too closely. Their expressions weren't confusion, they were suspicion. It wasn't long before a security guard approached, one Alicia didn't recognize. He was tall, stern, and already reaching for his radio. "Ma'am, this area is for staff only," he said firmly. Alicia blinked, stunned. "Excuse me," she replied, her tone calm but sharp. He shifted uncomfortably. "We've had reports of unauthorized personnel. I'll have to ask you to step outside." Unauthorized. The word hit her like ice. She reached into her bag for her ID badge, custom engraved, her name etched in gold. But before she could pull it out, another guard arrived, murmuring something under his breath. The room grew quiet. Customers were beginning to watch. Alicia tried to steady her breathing, but she could feel the burn of humiliation crawling up her neck. This wasn't just a mistake. It was disbelief painted across every face in the room. The whispers grew louder. Someone pulled out a phone. The irony twisted inside her like a knife. She had fought for years to bring diversity, to hire fairly, to make this institution a place of opportunity. And now, standing in the very space she'd built, she was being treated like a stranger. "Please step back," the guard repeated. Her voice broke slightly. "Do you have any idea who I am?" He hesitated, but only for a moment before replying coldly, "That's what they all say." Those words echoed louder than the murmurs, louder than the clicking cameras. "That's what they all say." In that instant, Alicia realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a reflection of something far deeper. The kind of bias that no position, no title, no wealth could erase. As they escorted her toward the exit, the employees she had once mentored looked away. Some out of shame, others out of fear. The glass doors loomed ahead like a verdict. But just as she reached them, a familiar face appeared. One of her senior executives, pale and flustered, rushing to intervene. The guards froze mid-step. The executive's expression said it all. He knew. He knew exactly what had happened, and that it wasn't just a mistake. It was a scandal in the making. Alicia didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The silence that followed was heavier than any outburst. She walked out of the bank, not as a victim but as a storm waiting to break. Because what was about to happen next wouldn't just clear her name. It would shake the entire foundation of the bank she'd built, and everyone who had dared to forget who she was. The story spread faster than anyone could contain it. Within hours, videos of the incident flooded social media. A black woman being escorted out of a bank she owned. Hashtags began to rise, the bank's logo trending for all the wrong reasons. Alicia sat alone in her car across the street, watching her empire unravel in real time. Every headline cut like glass. Unknown woman mistaken for intruder at Monroe Financial. Unknown. The word burned in her chest. They had stripped away her identity in front of the world. But she wasn't powerless, far from it. That evening she returned, not through the front doors, but through the executive entrance. Cameras flashed, security froze, and silence swallowed the lobby. This time she wasn't alone. Her legal team, board members, and the very investors who once praised her leadership stood beside her, grim and ready. The guards from earlier looked terrified, realizing who she was. The manager who had authorized the call tried to speak, but Alicia's raised hand stopped him cold. She walked to the center of the lobby, the same spot where she had been humiliated, and spoke with a calmness sharper than any shout. "I built this place on trust," she said, her voice steady, echoing through the marble. "But today I was treated as if I didn't belong. If this can happen to me, what happens to the people we claim to serve?" Every word landed like a verdict. Phones were recording again, but this time the story was hers. In that moment, the power dynamic flipped completely. The same employees who had turned away now couldn't meet her eyes. The investors whispered among themselves. The air felt heavy, charged with truth. And then, as she turned toward the cameras, she added quietly, "This institution doesn't just need a new policy. It needs a new soul." The room erupted, not in applause but in stunned silence. A silence that meant something had shifted forever. What came next would not just decide Alicia's future, but the fate of the very system that tried to erase her. In the weeks that followed, the story became impossible to ignore. News outlets dissected every second of the footage, analysts debated race and power in boardrooms, and people across the country spoke her name with awe and anger. Alicia Monroe, the woman who was mistaken for a trespasser in her own bank. But Alicia didn't chase sympathy. She channeled her anger into action. The guards were dismissed, the management team restructured, and every employee, from teller to executive, was required to undergo bias and empathy training. Yet, she knew policies alone couldn't fix what was broken, so she went further. She created a foundation, the Monroe Initiative, to fund Black-owned startups and provide mentorship for underrepresented leaders in finance. Ironically, the humiliation that was meant to diminish her had become her loudest message. Her story wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming dignity, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong in a room they helped build. Months later, she stood again in that same marble lobby, the same place where she'd been escorted out. Only this time, the eyes that met hers were filled with respect. The walls hadn't changed, but the spirit inside them had. Still, as she looked around, Alicia knew her victory was only one battle in a much larger war. For every story that made headlines, there were countless others that didn't. Quiet humiliations, silent pain, unseen strength. She turned to the camera during a televised interview and said softly, "They tried to make me invisible. But invisibility has never been weakness. It's where resilience is born." And as her words echoed across screens and hearts, one question lingered in the air. How many more stories like hers will it take before the world finally learns to see beyond color and start seeing the truth?